We're excited to have Vicki Newell with us today. Vicki is partner and CEO of Engaged Practice Growth Specialists and is a Gallup certified strengths coach with more than 30 years of experience in the orthodontic industry. She was Six Sigma trained while working with 3M Corporation and has worked with hundreds of orthodontists and university residency programs across the country, which provides her with unique insight into the needs of an orthodontic practice. Vicki, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Richie. Glad to be here today.
So let's start with why you changed the name from Systemize to Engage for those that know you as Systemize.
Okay. So when we first started, we recognized the need for efficient systems in a practice. So that was our focus of going in, evaluating systems, understanding the needs of the practice, and based on those needs, creating customized systems. Over time, we realized that without the right people on the bus that were properly engaged, that you could put the best systems in the world in place, but they weren't going to be efficient if you didn't have people who were happily engaged.
Absolutely.
So our goal became employee engagement, because when people are engaged, they're more productive, they're happier at work, and work takes on new meaning and purpose. So it's much, much more effective. So to become engaged it affects every aspect of a practice if we have people happily engaged. So engagement is your bottom line. And so if we're looking to improve performance, profitability, well-being, and just quality of life, we have to strive towards engagement.
So what is Engaged Growth Specialist today versus before? Is it the same? Is it you're just focusing on the team right now and there's less focus on the systems? Is it both?
It's actually, of course, it's both. But, there's a quote out there, and I think it might be Peter Drucker, but it was, you do not build a business. You build people and they build the business. And that is so true. And then it's the team dynamics. It's not any one person that can do everything. We're all good at something, but none of us are good at everything. And so the team dynamics makes all the difference when they recognize that. I guess if you go back in orthodontic practices, the kids would call it old school, and I do too, because you would have a corner office manager, then you would have the clinical team, the front desk team, and the doctor, right? Then your TC and financial coordinator. But that system is antiquated, the annual reviews where people dread going in and finding out, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? That's antiquated. If we're still practicing like that, then, we're falling behind. And as we all know, today's the profession has become incredibly competitive. And so in order to remain competitive, you really need to be making sure that your systems are current and that your people are properly engaged, that they are developing their talents, because all teams have knowledge, skills, and your knowledge deepens the more experience that you have. Your skills improve the more that you practice and the years of. But the talent is the missing component in most of the practices that we see. It's because a lot of people, unless they take the assessment and someone makes them aware of their talent, they're really not sure of what their talents even are, much less to be able to develop them.
So you're talking about this idea of creating a strengths-based practice. Why don't you tell us, kind of intro us, what does that really mean? And then what do you do for
excuse me. Strengths-based it brings a whole new language and culture to the practice. And the strengths training reminds me so much. There's such a parallel with orthodontics, because when you're new to strengths, it's like a foreign language. It's just a different way of approaching the business, but it brings a strengths-based team is 12 and a half times more productive. So everything.
Well, for those of us that don't know what that you mean when you say strengths, what do you mean by that? Was it based on that book originally? It's called Clifton Strengths.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, strengths is a research study. It was 5 decades of research through Gallup. And if you're not familiar with the Gallup company, it is, again, there's such a parallel because it's a company of scientists.
Ah, yeah.
So everything there is research-based. Just like in orthodontics, we want evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
And so the research just brings so much credibility to the work, because
It's 5 decades of research that they have. They've been
5 decades. Dr.
Wow.
Clifton, it was basically his life study, and it was a study of excellence. And what is it that people do to perform and to reach excellence, or at least strive for it. I don't know that any of us ever, become excellent or reach excellence, but
so the goal is to
we're striving for excellence.
Okay.
Yes. So what is it that people do to perform and reach for excellence? Well, Dr. Clifton narrowed it down to 34 talents, and every person on the planet has all 34.
Mm-hmm.
But the sequence in which they are applied varies with each individual, because we're all unique.
Yeah.
So we give the assessment when we're working with a team. That's the first thing that we do before we ever go into the office. Everyone has taken the assessment and gone through an initial coaching session.
So you've gathered the data, and you have the raw data of what their strengths are based off of this test that you're giving everyone. Okay.
Yes. So after the coaching session, we have a really good idea of who we're working with, positioning people, because oftentimes people do not have the opportunity to play to their strengths, to use their talents, and that can cause problems on a team. So
you'll often know that there's obvious problems based off the strengths and what position they might have, et cetera, before you even walk through the door, right?
Yes, which is really helpful. It's such a great tool in that we don't have a lot of time because we're not boots on the ground in the office every day. Mm-hmm. But this gives you a deeper dive into who a person is. It's really amazing research. It's I've never coached a person yet that didn't say, "Oh my God, that's me." It's unbelievable. I could have written that about myself.
How is it different than a personality test like the Myers-Briggs?
Myers-Briggs is a more general, where this, and it is personality, Myers-Briggs, where this identifies your innate talent, and it is unique, more specific, not in general.
So the data is much more valuable when you're building a team.
It is, and it's so perfect because orthodontics, the team is everything. I mean, if you're not a team player, I'm sorry, you can't be here. We have to be able to work together, to collaborate, and that is at the heart of strengths, of working together towards common vision and common goals.
Gotcha. All right, so they've all taken the test. You've got the data. Then what's happening next? You're saying you're walking into the office and talking to people, or?
So we've done the assessments individually, and then we'll go in for the first on-site visit and assess the systems. Look at their systems. Look at the dynamics of how the team, work together, interact with the patients and parents, with each other, which is key indicators. If people are well positioned. And it is a process. It's a journey. But to watch that unfold is extremely rewarding, really fulfilling to see people starting to tap into and reach potential that they didn't realize that they even possessed. So the coaching is key in terms of development, but we do provide workshops, and I think the one thing that makes all the difference is that we are not a cookie cutter approach. So we customize everything depending on the needs of the individual practice and the group that we're working with.
Yeah, and you probably learn a lot when you're actually in the office talking to everyone.
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, we learn probably as much as they do. And, just like anybody that starts into this process, it's an ongoing learning process. And we do, bring about change, and that can be really uncomfortable for people.
Oh, I bet it is.
But, yeah. But we all know that it's impossible to learn and grow if we stay in our comfort zone. So we have to step outside in order to be able to stretch and learn and grow. And the change always, it's a natural process, and people feel, more fulfilled, more confident. They have a better understanding. I think the one thing that is amazing to watch is the understanding and appreciation of the differences on a team. Whereas before that could have caused some personality conflict or be confused with personality conflicts.
Yes.
But it was actually just not having a good understanding of how a person responds. So to be able to understand what the talents of the members of the team are, first understand your own. Once you
you do a one-on-one coaching with every team member that's taken?
Yes.
So that's sort of one of the first steps.
Yes.
So they understand their own strengths. Do you talk about weaknesses, or you just talk about strengths with someone?
Well, it's important for people to be aware of their weaknesses, but we really don't focus on that because the time and energy that you would spend trying to fix what's wrong with a person, they might become average or mediocre, but they're never going to be great at something that they don't enjoy, where they do not find energy. So we focus on what they're really good at. Yeah. And we don't go in to change anyone, but to help them to become a better version of who they already are.
Yeah, you're kind of bringing awareness to who they were, because they probably knew about it innately, but seeing it written down and talking about it make a big difference, I imagine.
It does. It does.
You do this with the doctor as well, I assume. So,
of course. Well, the doctors actually, we start right away with leadership development because they're trained to diagnose and treat patients. So running a small business, dealing with, human resources, dealing with the personality conflicts and all that comes in running a small business, it distracts from their contributions on the team, which is diagnosing cases and treating patients. And that's where most all the doctors find their energy, and that's what they love to do.
Of course, that's why they're in that role. That makes sense.
Right.
So do all the team members, are they aware somehow of everyone else's strengths? Is it written down somewhere in the office? Or?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the very, very first projects that we do is have them design a strengths board. And the strengths board has every person on the team, their name on the board, and they can be as creative as they want to be. We've seen some really cool things that people have done with these boards, but it's in the staff room. So it's a constant reminder of, who has what talents on the team.
Yeah.
The commonalities, like if you go into the staff room and Richie, you have command. I don't think anybody else on the strengths board is going to have command, because command is one of the rarest talents in the research. We just don't see it very often.
Yeah.
But say achievers, we see a lot of achievers and relationship talents. And so they look for the commonalities because that's fun and easy. But what brings real meaning to the work is to recognize and appreciate the differences.
Yeah.
And that's where the dynamics of the team really begin to change, because people have a newfound appreciation of how a person responds and why. And so you can start to understand that person on a deeper level and have a new appreciation and adjust your communication with that person, which improves the relationship.
And you're helping them navigate all of this interpretation and all this newfound information about each other, I assume. That's interesting.
Yes, through the coaching and through the workshops, but we do measure everything along the way. So we cannot improve what we do not measure.
Absolutely. It's very
So I can't imagine that there probably everything in a practice has room for improvement. So we develop benchmarks, and Manon, she customizes those benchmarks for each of our clients, and we can measure anything from chair time to the recall system to payroll, expenses, whatever needs to be measured. And that.
Oh, so are you working with the doctor to determine these KPIs for them, the things the measurement that matter to the doctor?
Right. Yeah. We run reports based on the number of case starts. So then case acceptance rate, that would be a big one. So if, the percentage is not where it needs to be, then we can put action plans together to develop the goals to increase our case start acceptance rate. That's just an example. Payroll. If the doctor thinks, well, we need to hire somebody for a certain position, well, let's look at the payroll, right? And can we really afford to hire someone? Or are we going to have to cross-train and maybe have a couple people take on the role that you're wanting to hire a full-time position for, whatever the case may be.
But that's nice because you can look at now the strengths of the person instead of, hey, raise your hand if this is interesting to you, right?
Right.
This is how half of those meetings usually go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be huge.
Yeah. Even in the recruiting and interviewing, once we narrow down, because we help with that as well.
Yeah. So you'll help if someone wants to bring on more staff members?
Yes, we will. We do recruiting and screening. So we'll do the initial interview.
Yeah.
And if they, pass our litmus test, then we may recommend to go ahead and give them the assessment. And then we can look at what their top talents are, and based on the position that they're applying for, if this is going to be a good fit for that person. So it's such a useful tool in all aspects of the practice.
So you'll sometimes see big holes maybe in a team where you're like, we'd probably need to recruit someone with this strength because it's totally missing.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it creates a whole new culture. You watch over time the language change, and just how people interact. It's very transformative, very effective self-development tool.
Would you say there's a lot of drama in the office for whatever reason? Does it go up after you do this and then come down, or is it like an immediate reduction?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Zero tolerance. There's no drama.
Because that's always when I've managed big teams, that was always the most frustrating thing as a supervisor. There's just all this drama because it's just sucking up your time and it doesn't help anyone and everyone's all upset and da-da-da.
Yeah, well, oftentimes we have found that strengths is not for everybody. And there are people that weren't getting on board and they were just not in a happy place.
Yeah.
So when you reconfigure a team and you have a criteria of what you're looking for, which should be a reflection of the doctor, and what they want their practice to be.
Mm-hmm.
So people that want to learn and grow, the one thing I will tell you is we see a major reduction in turnover.
Oh, really?
Major reduction in turnover because people want to be a part of, a place where they can come into work, use their talent, their contributions matter, their voice is heard, they understand, the expectations are clearly communicated. So that's part of another assessment, which is the Q12. Now, the Q12 we administer, and that was another research study that Gallup over, I think it was 17 years,
Yeah.
I believe, but it was millions of employees globally to understand what they need in order to be engaged at work. And so they narrowed it down to 12 questions. So we administer that right away so that we understand the areas where they're doing well, but the areas where they're struggling is where we need to start. And so we administer the Q12. And once we get the results, we provide a workshop to go over the results and get input from the team. And again, this is where it's such a collaborative effort. It's not coming in and saying, well, giving them a list of things that need to be done.
Yeah, if you don't get buy-in from a team, it's never going to happen.
Not going to work.
Yeah.
Never going to work. But no, so the action plans, we start right away working towards engagement because we know when teams are engaged.
Can you give us kind of an example from the point of view of maybe a potential patient of what an engaged team looks like versus a team that is maybe completely not engaged?
Gallup identified 3 types of employees. Happily engaged, engaged, and actively disengaged.
Okay.
So the actively disengaged person is the person who is, they're just not happy. And it affects the entire team because the old adage, misery loves company, it's just affects the morale and the ability to work together to get things done. So the actively disengaged, we like to help them find a place where they will be happy since it's not here.
Yeah.
So they just can't stay if they're actively disengaged because it disrupts the entire team.
Oh, so you'll identify, the doctor will know specifically that this person is actively disengaged. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you have someone like that in the team that is like a virus. It's affecting the performance of everyone else, right?
That's a very good analogy. Yeah. And it's contagious. So it affects other people's attitudes and moods. And they're not happy to come to work because they dread, what is it going to be today? What are we going to have to deal with today? So actively disengaged people are just on the wrong bus. They just need to find another bus altogether.
Oh, I got you. Well, that's important to know. Okay.
So an engaged person, what Gallup found is they are reliable. They show up. They do their job. But they're on autopilot, and they're there for the paycheck.
Oh, there's a lot of people in that situation. Yeah.
There's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So less than 30% of workers in the United States are engaged. Less than 30%. So 7%.
I believe that. Absolutely.
That's a lot of people. So you think they're doing a good job because they're reliable, they never miss, but they're there for the paycheck. They're really not actively engaged. So the actively engaged person, they're able to find flow state. We've all heard about flow state.
Yes. Why don't you tell us about I think I know what you mean. Yeah. Is this when time is just passing and you're in it? right?
Yeah, no, they are able to reach. They're so engaged and love what they're doing that they really don't even realize what else is going on. They're just completely focused on the patient. If it's in the clinic and they're working on a patient,
Yeah.
and the procedure and learning to perfect the procedure, that they're just totally engrossed. There's a story I'll share with you. I just absolutely love this story. And this is a true story. There was a surgeon, and it was a neurosurgeon. So it was a 5-hour surgery. And
Yeah.
he was so engrossed in what he was doing, so happily engaged and loving, the process, that at the end of the surgery, they were closing the patient up, and someone said to him, "You didn't even realize what happened during the surgery." And he was, "No, what happened?" Well, the ceiling had fallen in over in the corner of the room.
What?
He wasn't even aware. He was
Yeah.
so engaged
Wow.
that, and I can imagine being a neurosurgeon, but still in all, the point is flow state with someone who is happily engaged occurs, it's consistent. It's more than not. Whereas a person who's not engaged, it's like, okay, what next? Okay, I got this. What next? Where a person who is engaged is loving what they're doing, more productive.
Hmm.
And so you can just imagine how that affects the morale of the rest of the team when everyone is engaged.
That makes sense. So if the doctor's getting more production, the patient's getting more attention, the attitude has got to be totally different. Like the energy of the person must feel totally different too.
Well, engagement is your bottom line, period. I mean, it affects performance. So again, we measure what matters. Um,
Could
and
you help
so,
us tie some of those measurements to engagement? Like if we want more patients for our practice, how is engagement going to help do that?
well, engagement affects the level of customer service that we deliver.
Yeah.
It affects, if you're in the TC role and they're completely engaged, obviously they're going to be more effective in closing cases and getting their start rate where it needs to be. So if it's at 70%, ideally we'd like to see it at 90%.
Yeah.
More. But
Absolutely.
if becoming engaged, you will see improved performance. We just do.
So you'll see that a lot of conversion rates will just go up because people are just more interested in the practice. Okay. So let's talk about its power of a strengths-based team preparing for a strong comeback after COVID craziness is over. What would you, what's your advice there?
Yeah. So what we're finding is, we're all dealing with uncertainty. Our routines are disrupted. The structure, that's a challenge on a daily basis. So the coaching has taken on a whole new dynamic in terms of, I knew this would happen in the beginning. We sent out an email that we're here throughout the process. Everyone's furloughed or laid off. But this is available to them.
Yeah.
And there were a few takers in the beginning that were scheduling coaching sessions. And now that we're this far in, it's just back to back to back.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to go back to work and we
Mm-hmm.
can't. So it's very frustrating. And so I've asked everyone to think about their talents. And in terms of coping on a daily basis, what are you tapping into? What helps you find energy to get through the day and meet the challenges? If it's, homeschooling or a spouse, a disgruntled spouse, because
Yeah.
they're climbing the walls too.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you have to tap into that can help you cope and to get through, the day and remain hopeful that we're going to get through this, and we are. But how are we going to get through this in a way that we can show up stronger than when we left? So we are Working with some of our teams with, okay, where were we? Where did we leave off? Oh, we were starting on the customer service.
Yeah.
We use a little Disney book, Lessons from a Mouse. So we're starting a book club. So everybody can read a chapter, and we'll show up in a group, and we start working on our customer service, because that's going to look a little bit different when we go back.
That makes sense. That's a great
And then
concept.
we need to talk about that. We should be taking advantage of this time to contemplate. So all of our people with futuristic or strategic, those talents, that we can share ideas about, okay, how are we going to ensure that we all feel safe, that our patients and parents feel safe coming back into the office, and what are some ways that we can, what can we provide to ensure that we're doing that? So prior to leaving, Man and Sherry and I had done some masterminding around, this was before the shutdown.
Yeah.
And my team, I'm just delighted, the strengths dynamics among the three of us. I know that I can count on them for the things that, I do not find energy, but they do.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And vice versa.
Good way
They
to
can
put
count
it.
on me for certain areas that they just would rather not do. But, Manon had come up with an idea that when they, prior to the shutdown, when they show up for their appointment, they would text the front desk, and only the patient would come in.
Yeah.
And then they removed everything from the waiting area, no toys, no magazines, and would disinfect like every 15, 20 minutes. We're constantly, visibly, everyone could see where they were disinfecting hard surfaces, wearing masks and gloves. Now it looks like that, and I'm not sure what OSHA is going to come up with, but we can well imagine that it's going to be much stricter guidelines than what we had previously.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we're talking about what products need to be ordered, because they're probably going to be on back order if you order them today. But we need to go ahead and get them ordered so we're in the queue.
Yeah.
So the face shields, a lot of dentists and orthodontists had donated their existing gloves and whatever masks that they had for healthcare workers. So they're going to have to completely replenish their supplies. So we just need to be thinking about all of that now, not knowing, is it going to be the end of May, the 1st of June, when we will reopen, but we certainly know that's going to look different.
Yeah, so get prepared for the new norm.
Yeah, but the other thing is just staying connected and making sure that, every single one of our doctors were so concerned with the staff. And it was such a difficult decision, not that, they had to shut down, but laying people off and delivering that message, and then trying to ensure that they were going to be okay.
So Vicki, why don't you tell us a little bit about some results you've seen with clients you've worked with? What were they looking for, and how did they achieve them?
So we always, start with the goals, and we do not set the goals for the practice. We may have recommendations, but ultimately, the doctor gives us the vision and goals. We have a vision and goals meeting with the doctor, and they let us know the improvements that they would like to see. So the goal setting typically will be improved communication. I haven't met a practice yet that didn't want to improve communication. So establishing those goals, each person on the team, that's part of the system that we remove are the annual reviews. Those are antiquated. Those are not effective. Nobody enjoys the process. And we've replaced it with employee contribution and development plans, which are,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, let's talk more about that because I'm only familiar with the reviews. I've done many dozens of them
Yeah.
myself. So.
And you didn't enjoy one of them, did you,
Oh
Richie?
no, everyone, whether you're a manager or you're on the other side of it, it's a terrible experience.
It is. So let's come up with something that's more productive and meaningful.
Yeah.
And so it gives each staff person the opportunity to establish their goals, and those goals must align with the practice goals. So if the goal of the practice is we're going to improve our communication, we're going to improve customer service, our level of customer service, and maybe they're looking for growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so their session that we have with the staff, each staff member, is to establish 3 goals that will align with the practice goals. And then the process is there is a form, the employee contribution and development plan, and they list their top 5 strengths.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at the bottom is a place for 3 goals.
Each
And next to
person
each
has
of
their 3 complementary goals, each team member or the whole team in general?
each individual team member. This replaces that annual review. It's a goal setting session.
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
And so rather than coming back once a year, we check in every 3 months to see how they're progressing. Are they finding any challenges? Is there anything we can help you with in developing those goals? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the support and the encouragement and the training, rather than just write a goal on a piece of paper. You actually bring that goal to life through your talents. So maybe a person that is high relator, that might be one of the talents they choose as a way that they're going to tap into to improve customer service. I'm going to develop more meaningful relationships with my patients or with my parents, right?
Yeah.
And thereby, that's really, you can use that for communication as well. So it's not that you have to have communication to be the best communicator, right?
Yeah.
You could tap into any one of your talents, to improve communication and customer service. We actually have doctors that have been in practice 20 years or so, and they're really not interested in growing anymore. They're at capacity, and they really want to be able to balance their family life with the work life. So they want to maintain the growth that they have achieved.
Yeah. Oh, so you were able to help someone in that situation. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's a great problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, who doesn't want that problem? Yeah,
but the growth is actually fun. It's fun to set the goals to increase, case starts, and then watch that evolve and reach those goals. And it's like, oh, where do we go from here? Well, there's always a next level, no matter how good we are or how great our performance is. There's always room for improvement.
And even if they're at capacity, I think creating these systems and strengthening the team and get them engaged, if you have some sort of event like we're having now, or we end up being in a long-term recession, that might not be the case 6 months from now. So they need to pull some levers to actually increase their starts to bring them back to capacity where they want to be.
Yes, and I think you've had some shows on the virtual consults.
Yeah.
And I spoke with a doctor that's actually seeing the daily schedule and having them send photos and being able to manage like the distalizers, the palatal expanders, check out, you have to watch hygiene. I'm sure parents get tired of reminding kids to brush their teeth. So, and with braces on, that's really important to be able to monitor the hygiene. So they're working and maintaining a schedule of sorts virtually, which is really important. So it's all preparedness and being ready to go back and not have it be a disaster, because ideally we want to start with production and try and make up for some of the lost time here that we've been off. Mm-hmm. So if we can focus on production, our schedules are going to have to change in order to accomplish that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those are all the things that we are looking at and working with our clients to prepare to come back.
Yeah, so we're helping them be
strong.
proactive now and giving them.
Yes, we can't wait. We can't wait. Just like with the ordering of the supplies, if it's a practice that's never used face shields, that's going to be a process. Like I said, they're probably at this point going to be back ordered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway. So we just need to be proactive and have a plan in place for when we do go back. Are we able to bring back the entire team all at once? Or is that going to be incremental? And is it going to be maybe, I mean, that all has to be given a lot of thought and to be able to come up with a strategic plan of what that's going to look like, because we're not going to just pick up where we left off, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great to have a consultant then when you're going through all of that, because it's just so, I'm talking to a lot of my clients and they're a little overwhelmed. There's so much to think about all at once.
It is overwhelming, but everybody needs a coach, and a good coach. You know, coaching is a calling. It is very fulfilling, but it's also very challenging at times to help, to be supportive in a way, especially right now, because I have some people that have shared with me that, you know, this is so difficult. It's like I wake up in the morning, but I don't want to get out of bed. And that worries me. And so to be able to help them to tap into talents, to find a way to cope, to find structure in their life, and to look towards the future. They might not be high and futuristic, like you, Richie.
Gotcha.
So you have to help them create that vision to help them see and understand the importance of staying strong. So I'm signing off all of my emails now. Stay strong. We have to stay strong, and we're in this together. And I think it's really important to maintain that connection. More than anything is for them to know that you care and to know that they're coming back, and to help them put a plan in place to prepare, you know, for the comeback is critical. It's really key for them coming back strong.
Yeah, I mean, now is the time to build your brand, build the practice, make it better than it was.
Absolutely. And how are we going to make sure that our patients feel safe, that we feel safe? So we have to put all of those measures in place now, not wait until it's time to go back, because then that's too late.
And it's going to be completely crazy. That's not a good time to be working on processes. Yes.
Yeah.
Work on processes now.
Yeah. Sure. But no, if one of the goals we were talking about, you know, the goals, so we cannot accomplish the goals for them, but we are the vehicle to help get them there. So if their goal is growth, well, let's establish, you know, a realistic percentage of growth. And then, I mean, it's not uncommon to blow the doors off. It's really not, depending on the situation. We had an account where a doctor had just opened a new location, and there were 0 patients there. So obviously that's a lot of opportunity. So how are we going to, right? That's how I don't look at it as like, oh my God, ground zero. It's like, wow, that's just nothing but opportunity.
There's only one direction to go, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
gotcha.
And so we had established a goal, I thought realistically would be 10%, the 10% growth. And if you looked at the, you know, gross revenue of the practice, 10% was really nice to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we ended up realizing 21%.
Oh, fantastic.
Right? So the other thing that's really important is in private practice, I mean, in corporate, we have incentives, right? And not just fun trips, but bonus systems. And so we recommend putting a quarterly bonus system in place. So if it is growth or even maintaining, that there's something to be said for that too, that you're not losing business, but you're maintaining, if you're 500 case starts, that you hover around 500, 530, whatever the case may be. But based on growth, a quarterly bonus system is a great incentive for staff to take ownership and see the big picture, which I think is really important. So if it's data driven, which we are, then if we're measuring, that bonus system comes into play.
Yeah, and once you have the data and you can measure it, it makes sense.
Yes. And then the accountability component, which is huge, is that there's a criteria, not just growth. Yes, of course, we have to have the growth, but then the criteria is compliance, performance-based. And so if they are contributing to the growth of the practice, then they're going to be rewarded above and beyond their paycheck.
And you're helping these doctors keep everyone accountable throughout this process, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. And usually what happens over time when the right people are in place and they've developed their talents and they actually become a strength-based practice, there's not so much, nobody wants to be managed.
Yeah, right.
None of us want to be managed,
of course.
But it's nice to be coached. It's nice to have a coach because sometimes, a person can't see the forest for the trees. So if an issue does begin to develop, we can recognize that, and then through coaching, help identify any issues, and then help a person get beyond whatever it is that they're dealing with.
Oh, great.
Because it distracts from the team. The well-being is another area that we've recently gotten into, because I realize if a person doesn't show up, where they've gotten enough sleep or proper nutrition or exercise, they can't possibly give 100% to the team.
Of course not. That's just
right.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't take that into account. That's a hard thing to address with an employee. Like, it's happening, but it's a tough conversation to have sometimes.
But we provide workshops and we talk about the benefits of exercise, nutrition, and it's a challenge for all of us, right?
Yeah.
We all struggle with that. So to be able to, they'll have contests within the office with workouts, and you know what I mean? It just creates a whole new dynamic. So it's all very supportive, very encouraging, but it's very important that we're taking care of ourselves. And so well-being is another area of focus that we think is really important.
Yeah, it gets the team more engaged, helps you reach your goals. Great.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's a nice part. A little.
It's fun. Yeah, but we are starting. We're talking about results. We're starting, and this is something I've tried to do all along, but it's just the time involved.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to take the talents of orthodontists or TCs or clinical coordinators or chair side, whatever the position is, and find the commonalities. Like we see a lot of achiever or high responsibility in those talents. And so we would like to do our own research study as it pertains to orthodontics.
Yeah, that would be great. Interesting.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get started, they're interested in strengths, do you have any promotions going on right now during this time?
I was thinking about this prior to the webinar and thought it might be nice that anyone that has attended the webinar today, if they want to go to our website and fill out the information with their email address, we will send you an assessment code and then offer a free coaching session.
Oh, that's great.
And that'll give you a little more insight into the work and the benefits for your practice and for you individually, because it's very much a part of your personal life and those relationships and things outside of the office, but definitely beneficial for teams.
Oh, great. Well, thanks. So we'll put all the information in the recap, and if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they just go to engageortho.com and contact you right away. Well, Vicki, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Richie. It's been fun. Okay. Take care.
You too.
Stay strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye, Richie.
Bye.